Yeah, it's funny. This morning I was, like Kevin said, I was pretty much not going to come because I was just laying in my bed and my back was getting worse. And but then I thought the message I prepared for today is on perseverance, and I thought that's really lame if I'm going to lay on my bed and I don't get up. And then we were singing that song, that last song that John led us in. Agnes Day, Worthy is the Lamb. And that's actually like the last song we sang when I was in New Zealand, with thousands of young people were singing, Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. And so it's so cool to come back here and just continue that song and be reminded that that's literally what they're singing in heaven. Maybe not to the same melody or whatever else, but even when I was there, I was just trying to help these young people understand, like, we're not starting anything here. Like, this has been going on forever, and I was just praying out, God, could we literally join heaven right now? As the angels are singing this or saying this, like, could you have us like do it at the same time and picture ourselves as one singing to you? And so we were imagining like the angels looking at the throne, singing these words to God, and us singing at the same time, because that's really what Ephesians is about. Ephesians 1 says God has a plan for the fullness of time to unite things in heaven and on earth. And so it was just this powerful moment where we were just trying to do that now. In Christ, can we unite heaven and earth by saying, Worthy is the Lamb? Because according to Revelation 5, that's what they say up there. And for us to be singing it, and it was pretty cool to then be singing it here and thinking about, gosh, talk about perseverance. It says day and night. These angels, they never stop saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. It says day and night, they never stop. They don't stop and go, oh, my wing hurts. It's just, they just keep singing. They keep going for it. And there's something about perseverance. I think that's why I was so blessed when I was supposed to stick like that. Oh, no, I got it. Okay. I think that's why I was so blessed when I came here and I saw, a lot of the old faces. Not like old, although you don't look as young as we used to. But, there's just something great about that. The relationships, the things we've been through. Kevin Kim did this talk with a bunch of pastors from different places. But he went through the history of We Are Church. And he had pictures and timeline and everything else. And as I'm looking through that timeline, I'm going, oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. But with everything that he listed, it was really, nothing went the way we thought it would go. Like, oh yeah, that was a disaster. Oh, so was that. And that was too. Just going like, man, so much disappointment. And yet, I was telling the guys what's crazy is I still love serving the Lord. I'm still as hopeful for the future. I'm still like, I don't know, there's nothing in me that goes, yeah, I don't want to serve him as much now because this didn't go the way I wanted to, nor did this, nor did this. And sometimes we get caught up in like this American idea of success of, okay, unless it grows to this point and sustains to this, to this point, then to this level, then it was a failure. But you look in the scriptures and you'd have to say that all the prophets were failures then, because all they did was just keep sharing the truth. And most of them were rejected their whole lives. And I think about a lot of times in the early days where we'd go out on these streets right here in Bayview and just get rejected over and over and over. Some of us were together and before that in the TL, and we'd get rejected over and over and over, or they'd pretend and then they'd get high and forgot they even talked to us. And and yet here we are saying the same thing. Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. And I love that I could sing that with you guys. Say, I'm so glad that God got my back good enough. And, that's the thing about worshiping him, though. Like, every time it takes some sacrifice, once you do it, you're going, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I didn't take the easy way. And just to encouragement, I mean, God is doing amazing things. They said they haven't had a gathering that big in New Zealand for like 40 years. And then a couple years ago, I was in Norway doing the same type of thing, these events called the Send. And it is ridiculous, the stats of what has happened since the time we went there to now. Like, they said literally they could not find a single, Christianity has just been dying out in Norway. It's just way out there, just dying. I mean, they have stats. The ministries just for the last 25 to 30 years decline. And then the Lord did something a couple years ago, and they said now they literally can't find a single youth group in Norway that is not growing. Like, and the numbers, it was like 9%, only 9% of Christians were not ashamed on their high school campus to admit that they're Christian. And now it's like 31% are sharing the gospel regularly on their high school campus. So there's something that's happening. We hear about things in Iraq or Iran, in the underground church, but it's happening with white people too. So it's just cool. It's cool. Shout out to my wife. But they're actually, honey, come up here. Come up here. Talk about perseverance. Last couple months we've been talking a little bit about family and marriage, and it's been awesome, out in East Palo Alto, just talking about just the way God designed marriage. And I don't know, for some reason on the plane, I was thinking about, like, remember how you would ask me, hey, is there anything I do that bugs you, And, which I would name like one or two things, but it was really more because she had a list that she wanted to get out. Because you had a bunch. It was. Okay.
That's not true.
Okay, but you did have a lot. But it was funny because on the plane here, for some reason that memory came to mind. And I thought, gosh, what would I say today if she asked me that? And I thought, I really can't think of anything.
What?
I just thought, there's something about perseverance, You go through some difficult times, but you just figure things out. And I was just thinking, gosh, we really do think a lot alike now. I think more deeply, but no, we think differently, but it works. And you just start working things out. And I think, gosh, how many people never persevere so that they get to enjoy that? Actually, I didn't tell you. Last week I was in Kansas City, and I was talking to this attorney who was doing family law, and he's quitting now. He's like, gosh, he goes, I used to be able to help like 50% of the couples to keep them from getting divorced. That's pretty awesome divorce attorney, family law guy. And then he goes, now it's like under 5%. and people aren't listening. And then he said there was a couple that came in recently in their 80s to get a divorce. Been married 60-something years. And then, not only that, he found a gun in her wheelchair. She was going to kill him. I'm like, what the heck? You know, you made it so far and now in your 80s? And I go, was she losing it? Was it her mind? He goes, no, they were both there. She just got so angry about something. And I thought, wow, that's so sad. You get so close to the end and you just end it. And the Bible says, since David was going to preach from Malachi, you know, that God hates divorce. There's just something he hates, that quitting, and yet we're living in a time where people are quick to ditch each other, whether it's in marriage, family, or in the church. I mean, it's just a normal thing. You just ditch each other. And there's something about persevering in relationships. And I mean, to think that with some of you, we'll be singing Worthy as a Lamb in heaven together. And we just stick it out. We make it through this time on earth. And, you know, I was going to teach Ephesians 6, verse 10, where it talks about just standing firm. Like, having done everything to stand therefore, standing against the schemes of the devil. And that's not, I don't know if I've ever preached that passage before, because I'm just not like a stand and persevere guy. I'm always like trying to move forward and take ground. And but there's something beautiful about that passage, especially in the world that we live in right now, where it's like, you know what? If I just stand my ground and nothing else, okay, I don't go try changing the world and thinking I've got the message that's going to change. All I do is just stay faithful, stand firm, stay faithful to my wife. We've been faithful to each other for 31 years. At least I've been faithful. I'm assuming you have been. You never know. But if we can just be faithful, our kids are worship leaders now. They're having kids. And I'm praying to God, can I stay alive a little bit longer just to minister to the grandkids and tell them how great you are? And if that's all I do is raise my kids, be faithful to them, be faithful to my wife, have a few disciples, have some relationships that last till the end, I go, you know what, that's a good life. That's a good life. And sometimes, you know, when in the past I think I've tried too hard to be that voice and to rally everyone, but then everyone thinks they're that voice that rallies everyone, and then everyone starts fighting about who's really the voice, and oh yeah, you're a heretic, no you are, you know, and it just gets into this crazy, like, who can be the loudest. And that's the generation you guys are growing up in, you know, with social media. It's like you got to have the loudest, you know, phrase or the loudest picture or the loudest expression on your face and say the cruelest or the harshest thing or most exaggerated statement. And rather than just going, gosh, let me just try to love as deeply as I can those people that are in front of me. See, this last year, God felt very convicted that I wasn't supposed to travel. And so it's just these last 2 weeks that I started again. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm just done with traveling, because there was something so refreshing of just staying in one city, loving the people in front of you, and trying to love them more deeply. And I just started feeling more for them and caring for people. And there's something about the crowds that kind of messed me up. My youth pastor taught me, like, when you go to a place, like, look for people. Like, when you walk into the youth group, look for someone who needs to be loved. And so I always try to do that when I'd go into a church gathering, is who needs to be loved? I want to just go care for someone. But then something started happening when the crowd got bigger and the lines got longer. I would just try to find an escape route. Remember at one point, Lisa's like, just don't look up at people. Just look down if you want to get out. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. But then people would still grab you and stop you. So then my friend, this worship leader guy, says, just put your phone up to your ear and look down, because they don't stop you if you're on the phone. And so I would just, to get out of a room, I'd put, and I'd call Lisa, so this way I wasn't lying. I was actually talking to someone. I'd say, hey, honey, I'm just trying to get out of this room. How are you? And I thought, wow, that's crazy. I went from walking in a room and looking people in the eyes and seeing who might need prayer, who might need encouragement, who needs to be loved, to everyone wants something from me, so let me get out of here as fast as I can. And it just does something to you, And it's been so nice to just simplify life again and just go, you know what, this is actually really successful. 2 Peter 1 says that if you just increase in your virtue, in your godliness, in your self-control, in your brotherly affection, and in your love, he says if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they guarantee that you will not live an unfruitful or ineffective life in Christ Jesus. So there's a promise that if I just keep growing in my love for people and just increase in my godliness and my virtue, my brotherly affection, he says, you're going to have an impact on the world. I thought, wow, that's crazy. And I realized, with all of these people, myself included, trying to scream louder or say something more creatively, if you go on the internet and just look at Christians talking, it's irritating. And it reminds me that, like 1 Corinthians 13 says, if you speak in the tongues of men and angels, but you have not love, he goes, you become a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And that's what a lot of the church can become when we're just trying to say things the most effective way or the loudest way, or try to get as many people to watch something or listen to something. When that becomes your goal, you end up just making a lot of noise. But there's something about just persevering in love and going, hey, let's try to increase in our love. Because we get so excited about things like, oh, I doubled my social media followers, or this podcast doubled, and whatever, listeners. And we think that's a big deal. But what if next year you are literally twice as loving as you are today? You ever made that a goal? Does anyone go, wow, that was awesome. You're like way more loving. Like we don't value the things that God values. And he says at the end, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. Like that's it. So how much of these things that we've been trying to succeed at is God going, oh yeah, you did it. And how much is wood, hay, and stubble that's just going to burn up, and he's going to look at you and go, wow, you are faithful to loving those people even more deeply than when you first met them. You persevered through the difficult times, and not only is there a reward, I think, in relationship here on earth, but I really think that's what God's going to reward us for. And it's a joy. And so the angels that are still worshiping together in heaven, where I don't believe there's any division, and he says, God says that one day we're going to join them, and that's been the plan for the fullness of time. Since the beginning, God had this plan to unite heaven and earth as one. And so, man, I'm just encouraged that you guys, and I just thought, Lisa always has something good to say. No, she really does. Like, when I bring her up, at the end, I'm like, why did I even say anything? I should have just had her in the beginning. So that's why I brought you up in the beginning, but then here I go talking. I just thought, anything you feel like you want to share to the church in San Francisco?
I thought you were just using me as
Eye candy.
no, because your back hurts.
Oh.
I was like,
You are my
I'll
crutch.
stand here and be the crutch, no problem. No, actually, as you were talking, I was thinking so vividly, the Lord brought back this memory when we were in Hong Kong. And Francis is like, he had gone somewhere with the kids, and I wasn't able to go. I think I stayed back with Sai, but then he wanted to take me. So it was just the two of us. And it was to hike to the peak, it's called. But I didn't realize how awful of a hike it was. It literally felt like we were like walking up a straight incline. And all along the way, I start out with like a pretty decent attitude, like, okay. And then, I'm definitely just complaining, and I'm slightly annoyed. And I'm like, babe, I don't want to do this. This is so hard. And he's like literally coming behind me and like pushing my back so that he can like help during certain segments, because it just felt so like, when you're, please, someone nod their head, like when you're trying to, okay, you guys are all like, wow, she's lame. But I was really super out of shape, but my legs were burning. And, there's other people. So I'm thinking, okay, well, they've survived, so I guess I'm going to be okay. But Francis kept saying, honey, you're going to love it. Like when we get to the top. Now, of course, he's been there, right? And I had not. So I probably should have been trusting him, but I was not. I was just thinking, sucks. And then we get to the top. And mind you, we're in a new country. We still don't know a whole lot of people. We've left everything that we know in San Francisco. And so like a comforting sight, can I just tell you, there was a Starbucks at the top. And I was like, it's worth it. Which really says a lot about who I am. But but it was like, he knew this, and he's like, he had this just joyful, like, honey, you're doing great. You're going to make it. He's pushing me up the hill. And it was like the sweetest thing. So I as we were thinking, he's talking about endurance, which has so been on my heart too. We actually got together as like leadership ladies and talked about this. Like, we have need of endurance. And God it says in Romans 15, I think it's either 5 or 15, but he is the God of endurance, and hope. And I'm thinking, wow, we don't have to like try to be or muster it up on our own. Like, God is the God of endurance. And so that is his heart for us, and his great joy to give us that spirit of endurance. But I was thinking, there's some regrets I have about that hike. Like, wow, I was such a baby. I complained. I was negative, and I was not encouraging. I'm thinking, okay, now that I had been there, had we done it again, I could have had a different heart. I could have been like watching someone pass by and be like, you're doing so awesome. Good job. Are you going to Starbucks too? Like, it just could have made the journey a lot more fun and exciting and wonderful. And I'm just kind of feeling like the Lord going, yeah, do you see how, you're with me? Sometimes we just get into that like, oh, this is so hard, and this is so, I'm just so negative, and I'm complaining. And I was like, wow, Lord, I'm so sorry I do that in my spiritual journey without remembering like the hope. What's on the other side is something so far greater than Starbucks. Like, wow, we are going to be in the presence of our Creator, the one who loves us so perfectly. And that's why we endure. That's why we have joy along the journey. That's why we look to one another and we're like, come on, are you struggling? Let me help push you. I know, my husband did this for me. I'm going to help you. That's like the heart we want to have, not just to endure for endurance sake, like, oh, I'm just holding on, but like, remember that we can change the journey for other people. And it can really affect our journey if we have the hope. We carry the hope of what is on the other side. That is why we endure. And so maybe it helps us if we just start thinking that way, looking up scriptures about heaven and what does God say is on the other side. Read the letters to the churches in Revelation and see how at the end of every single letter, he's like, oh, but to the one who holds on, to the one who holds fast, to the one who endures to the end. I'm not even going to tell you some of them. You look them up and see what God says he's going to give to you on the other side of that. And so that's our heart in endurance. And so I just really want to encourage you to press into that.
Wow, thank you. I know, see? It's like, why don't I do that every time? Yeah, wow, I think that's the word for us. That was a, perfect illustration. Well, it's funny because, we're walking through the wilderness, it's like woods and trees and everything else. And there's actually an entire mall at the top, and so you just don't expect it, and I'm like, oh, she's going to love it because she's just thinking I'm going to show her this awesome tree. And, cause she doesn't care about nature, but a mall, and, it was just such a joy to get there. And I just, like, that's one of the things I used to daydream about because, like with the kids, we've sacrificed some things over the years, and I just tell them it's worth it. It's going to be worth it. I mean, we made millions of dollars and just gave it away so that now they inherit nothing from us. But I'm like, you're going to thank me, and I keep thinking, I used to daydream of the day when we're in heaven together, the new heaven, new earth. And I could just look at them and go, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? I told you it was going to be worth it. He always makes it worth it. Everything I've sacrificed, it always ends up great, one way or another. And whether it's here on earth or it's going to be later, he promises this reward. And so just keep pushing up this hill. Just sacrifice what you need to on this earth. Just make it through. It's going to be worth it. It always has been. He's true to his word. Let me just read that passage from Ephesians 6, verse 10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand, therefore. That's it. You just keep going, and you just stand. And I understand that there's a lot of things right now that come against us. That's why that idea of not giving up ground, just like standing firm, like this is about to hit us, and you just stand there. There have been so many scandals in churches, leadership, people that I trusted. And when they fall, and when you realize they lied to you, there's almost like a temptation, like, well, if he did that. Or you guys would go, oh, if these leaders are doing that, then what's the big deal if I look at some pornography? There's something that's like, no, these things can weaken you. Think about theology. Throughout this city, pastors have changed their theology because the world has changed. And so rather than sticking to what they know to be true, they're like, well, we got to just kind of, appeal to these people. But think about this, you guys. Since the time of Christ, people have been preaching the exact same thing about human sexuality for 2,000 years. And now suddenly, our generation is going to change that? Like, this is the way it's always been. And so the arrogance to say every believer who's ever lived for these last 2,000 years has been wrong, and I figured it out. I understand the temptation. Look, I get it. You just start getting looked at as a freak for holding on to these ancient, historic, Judeo-Christian values that people have held on to. But that's what perseverance is about. That's where we strive side by side and go, hey, I'm not backing down. Don't you go backing down. Like what Lisa was saying, don't you quit on me now. We've made it this far. Don't come with, at 80-something years old and shoot me. Wait, let's make this thing to the end. It's persevering and persevering relationships when everyone is ditching, everyone's criticizing and has a problem with it, with leadership, authority. I mean, that's what makes us Christians. We actually love authority. We love having King Jesus as our authority. We love his commands. We love everything that he does. And we go, I want him to be king. That's what's different about us and the rest of the world. We're like, we want you to come. We want the new heaven. We want the new earth. And we want you to be the ruler. And I'm just tired of everyone having a voice and believing their opinion is right. God, come and set everything straight. Isn't that going to be amazing when someone is sitting on the throne and you go, there's no challenging him. And he's perfect. And he loves me. So that's really all I wanted to share with you guys is just persevere. Let's stick it out. Someone did ask me what has helped me persevere. Because I've been following Jesus for 40 years, pretty much in ministry that whole time. And I love it so much still. I love this. I love just being here in the presence of God. I don't really love being on a stage or in front of a group. I just love being a part of a group where we're all staring at God and saying the same thing. But I'll just do whatever God calls me to do. I still love it, but I tell him, there's just two things I try to remember every single day, and it just centers me. Just these two truths. One, I try to remember every day, and I ask God, would you remind me if I forget to think about the fact that you are holy? That means, some days I don't even talk to God at first. I just take a breath and go, I couldn't have done that without you. We did that together. I can't even breathe without you, God. It's true of all the angels. He alone is immortal. And I just remember, who do I think I am? He is the only one who is immortal. He is the only one who has life in himself. He gives us life, therefore we live. And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so those of you who are not raised understanding that God is someone to be feared, then you've missed the very foundation. You're skipping straight to other things that you want. And I'm telling you, they're not best for you. You start with the fear of the Lord. And so God, remind me every day that you're holy and have me dwell on that. And secondly, remind me every day that you love me. That you're seriously in heaven loving me. And this one's harder for me. That's right. You love me. You're crazy about me. You're holy and you desire me and love me and are jealous for my spirit. Like you want me, like you're the greatest command, the greatest thing you would want is for me to love you back with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. Because you so want that from me. I mean, if I can meditate and just ground my life on those two truths, you're holy and you love me. If I could meditate on that every day, I really think I could make it through everything. Seriously, because what compares? Then suddenly it doesn't matter what people think of you. You go, whoa, but God, the holy God, who's keeping you alive, he loves me. He loves me. Do you believe that today? Because when I was sharing in New Zealand, I had notes and didn't go with it at all because I just didn't say a whole lot. I just had this realization, wait a second, everyone that's come here wants to be forgiven by God. Who doesn't want to be forgiven? Everyone wants to be forgiven. Everyone wants to be forgiven, cleansed. And then God wants to forgive everyone. I mean, that's what it means. He's rich in mercy. But God being rich in mercy because of the great love with which he loved us. He's like, mercy is just who he is. It's not like one day he was merciful, so he sent his son to the cross. He was feeling forgiving. No, God being rich in mercy. So we don't want to overcomplicate church and gatherings. You have people who want to be forgiven by God, and you have a God in heaven who is rich in mercy and loves showing mercy and forgiving people. And so, what is better than that? I come into the presence of a God who actually loves me and wants to forgive me. Some of you as parents know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want distance with your kids. They do something wrong. You want them to confess it and then restore that relationship in me. That's our desire. And if we as humans want that, imagine our God who gave us that desire. He goes, I want to be right with all of you. I love you. I'm a holy God. I love you. I want to forgive you. So just confess whatever you need to confess. Get it right. And this is how we persevere through life together. And then we come to the table and remember his body that was broken for us and his blood that was shed for us. Why do we do this at all our gatherings? Because it reminds us we have a God who wants to forgive us. And he sacrificed to do so. So he's not reluctantly forgiving you today. We have a God that's persevered our sin, all the things we've done to him. He goes, I still love you. Come to my table, eat my body, drink my blood. I want my flesh in you. I want my blood in you. We are one. And one day, he goes, I'm going to join you with all of heaven. I don't know if we're going to drink of the new wine together somehow. But that's what that whole marriage supper of the Lamb is all about. We've got it good. We've got a great God. And life is good.